Welcome back to A Moment in History. I'm Seth Udinsky. In tonight's segment, let's return to the height of the most famous war in the Middle Ages. Often in history, there are certain what I call continental divides, where something happens that forever changes the course of that story. Let's explore one of these tonight as we travel across the Atlantic and across the European continent to the Holy Lands and the city of Jerusalem. We will explore arguably the most devastating Christian loss of the Crusades, the Battle of Hattin in 1187. This was the true turning point of the Crusades and of Christian dominance in Jerusalem. Now let's recap the story so far. In 1099, an army of several thousand Christian knights took the city of Jerusalem from the Muslim Turks who had ruled it for over 400 years. The Franks, and by the way, that's just another name for the Western Christians, established the Christian kingdom of Jerusalem upon their capture of the city, and since the end of the 11th century, the Holy City had been the epicenter of Christian dominance in the Holy Lands. But in the late 1140s, the Muslims struck back, taking the county of Edessa and several other lands and preparing for a recapture of Jerusalem. Over the next several decades, a Muslim leader would arise to unite the largely divided Muslim tribes against the Christians to retake Jerusalem. His name was Saladin, Sultan of Egypt and Syria and leader of the Ayyubid dynasty. In July of 1187, the Battle of Hattin took place. The Muslims won a brutal victory at the expense of the Christians at Hattin, which, by the way, is a valley between two mountains near the banks of the Sea of Galilee. Thanks to some incredibly effective archers and Saladin's brilliance on the battlefield, the Muslims decimated the Christians. An added loss for the Christians was that Saladin led the famous capture of a relic, a supposed piece of the true cross of Christ, which the Christians took with them into battle in hopes it could generate divine victory. The loss was devastating, and 2 months later, Saladin led the recapture of Jerusalem from the Christians. This devastation lit a new crusading fire in Europe, and several medieval kings launched a third crusade to retake the city, including Saladin's legendary rival, Richard the Lionheart of England. Richard recaptured much of the land lost to the Muslims, but he could not retake Jerusalem, nor could any other crusader after him. The Crusades ended 100 years later in Christian defeat at Acre in 1291. Thanks so much for joining me once again for A Moment in History.